Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I recently discovered a pretty cool form builder called Makeforms, and I finally got a chance to explore it. Today, I want to show you 15 unique features that make this form builder stand out. So let's dive in and see what Makeforms can do for you and why I think it gives Typeform a run for its money. All right, so here we are. So no Miro board today because we are going to be building a form, so we don't really need a workflow diagram. But what we do need is a checklist because I want to show you 15 features that I handpicked that I really believe that can make this form builder stand out for you. What I'm going to do is I have this list here on my Google Sheets document called Makeforms Demo, and we are going to go one feature at a time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and build a intake form for, say, a dental clinic. All right, so let's begin with the first feature called email verification. So first things first, let's switch over to the Makeforms dashboard. Here I am all logged in. My account is fully created. Typical setup, so I don't need to go through that. But what we are seeing on the screen right now is the Makeforms workspace. And if you click on this icon here, there is an option to switch between different workspaces if you have them, which we are going to talk about later in the video. But for now, I'm just going to stick to my default workspace. And you can see up top on the right here, there's a big button called Create Form. So that's exactly how you begin to build your form. And there's a bunch of settings here on the left as well, which we are going to explore as this form evolves. So let's start by clicking this button, Create Form, and you get a couple of options here, right? So you can do either a standard form, which is more like your Google Forms, basically one giant document with a bunch of questions, or you can do Typeform style form, which is one at a time form. But you don't have to really make the decision on this at the get-go. You can always change it later if you need to. So let's begin with the standard form. And here again, you have a few options. You can either choose a template or you can use the AI form creator, or you give it a prompt, it comes up with some questions. But we're going to ignore these two options and we are going to start from scratch because I'm not going to show you how to build a form here. I want to show you the 15 unique features as I mentioned. So let's start from scratch and let's give it a name. So I'm going to call it the dental clinic intake form, and I'll just select the demo folder for now, and the English language is default for now. Okay, so it's going to spin up my canvas where I'm going to be able to select the different options and questions for my form. And as you can see in the tabs here, you have the welcome page, which you can turn on if you want, and you can add some basic text here. So I'm just going to add a paragraph text here. Let's drop it below here, and I'll just say, welcome, please go through this form, this intake form for your upcoming appointment, something like that. There we go. So something basic for now, because again, our focus is going to be on the features today. Okay, so let's go to the form tab, and here we can start to add our questions for the form. So the thing that I want to begin with is the email verification. So on the left here, just like any other form builder, pretty standard layout, options on the left, canvas in the middle, and then settings on the right. So you begin by picking the input field that you want to display on the form. So I'll select the email field for the first one. And the reason I'm selecting email field is because everything else in the form is going to depend on this feature because we are looking at the email verification feature. So when you add this, now if you preview the form, you have your typical form with an email field, right? No difference so far. So let it load. I'll click on next, and we see the dental clinic intake form, and we see the email field. So nothing unique about this so far. But if I go back here and I go on the right to the settings menu for this field, there is an option called enable verification. And what that allows me to do is if I turn it on, it will say, and then there's a follow-up option that says verify first. And it says enabling this option will need the user to verify their identity before filling the rest of the form. So definitely I want to enable this for my dental clinic intake form. So I'm going to turn it on. And what's going to happen is anything else that appears in the form will be hidden to the user until they verify their email. So let's take it for a spin. I'm going to add the name field here as well. And I'm going to make it a required field, and let me publish this. So again, just hit the button. It will generate the form and give you a link that we can then open in a new tab. So here we go. Our form is published. Let's open it in a new tab. And notice here, my name field is missing because remember, we enabled the email verification. So everything else is going to be hidden to the user. So if I click on the continue button, it says, please fill out this field. Okay, so let's try that out. I'm going to add my demo email. And once I hit continue now, instead of showing me the rest of the form, it is going to send me an OTP verification. So a one-time password has been sent to your email. So now I'm supposed to go to my email, grab my one-time password, put it in here, and then the rest of the form is going to get unlocked. So let me open my email here in a new tab. Okay, so it seems like I just received an email. Please verify your email. And if I go here, I have this one-time password, which I can copy and then go over back to my form, which is right here, paste the one-time password, and now it's going to verify that my email was indeed correct. And if I hit next, now all of the information is now available. All the fields are now available. So now it shows me all of the available fields on the form, and it also shows me this little check mark indicating that I have already verified my email. So that is the first feature which can come in pretty handy. Okay, so let's go back to our list. I'm going to close this as well. And let's go back to the build and open the checklist. So this one is now done, the email verification feature. So the next one, again, pretty handy for a dental clinic or any other clinic intake form, is the legal consent field. So let's go back to the builder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for a legal field. So it says legal consent. Let's drop that onto the canvas. And here it says, write your question. I accept, I don't accept. And for this, I'll say, please read and accept our terms and conditions. Okay, so now you might be wondering, where am I reading the terms and conditions? I have the I accept and I don't accept option, but I also want the user to be able to read my terms and conditions. What you can do, again, if you go to the right, there is an option to show legal consent. So let's turn that on. And now I get this text box where I can actually inject my entire legal consent document. So for now, I'm going to create some dummy text. So let me copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. There we go. So what it's going to do now is, if I make it required, is that it is going to not let the user continue until they accept or decline. But that's not, it doesn't stop there. There's another option, which is pretty cool, is that it is going to enforce reading. So if I turn this option on, it is not going to let you even accept until you have read the legal consent. So let's turn it on and let's preview once more. So now you see that the I accept and I don't accept field is actually frozen. I cannot engage with it just yet. But once I scroll all the way to the bottom, and now it is available. So now I can accept and then continue with the rest of my form. So that is another cool feature that I thought should be highlighted here. Very cool. So let's close this again, and we are going to be doing this a few times. And let's check this one off. Okay, so the next feature that I want to talk about is something known as the repeater group. And this also comes in pretty handy, especially for a medical intake form or a dental clinic intake form, because we can allow the user, or the patient in this case, to be able to list their medical issues as many times as they want. So we go back here to the form, and I'm going to look for a text field. So let's just use a text area for this. And let's name this describe your health issue, or something like that. Maybe the question is different for the dental clinic, but it gets the job done for now. And what we can do is, so this will allow them to type in whatever they want. But what we can do is we can, using this form builder, you can allow this to be repeated. So if you click on repeat this field, and then we can select how many times or how many health issues a patient can describe, we can mark that here as well. So let's just give it 10 because that seems pretty reasonable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to publish it and open a new instance of this form here and enter the email again because I need to verify. Maybe I should turn this off for the rest of the demo, but okay for now. And look for the email verification. There we go. And enter that in. Okay, click next. Okay, so now I have this, and then I also have my health issues form. For some reason, I didn't get my label, but we can fix that, no problem. But notice here, so I describe the issue here. And then what I can do is I can add more. So if I click on add more, so this field shows up again, and I can describe another issue here. And I can keep going because I have allowed the patient to be able to enter it up to 10 times. So we can keep going like this. And that way, as many issues that they need to describe, they can do that in a separate field. So pretty cool use case. Again, I thought without doing any fancy subform logic, you can just do it within the form. So that was the repeater group. Actually, so this was a repeater field. What you can also do is, if I go back to build, if you have multiple such questions that you want to repeat multiple times, instead of repeating the field, you can repeat at the group level. So there's a repeater group that we can drag and drop here. And what I can do is I can probably drag this form into, yeah, there we go. So now what we will do is we will turn off the repeat on the field, but we will turn on the repeating on the group level. So we can say this repeats up to 10 times. And in here, I can add other things as well. So I can add, for example, scale. So maybe if it's like to check some kind of pain or something like that, I can also add a scale within this group, and I can say describe the pain level. So now once we publish this form, the user will be able to see this entire group, and then they will be able to repeat this group multiple times, up to 10 times. And we will see this when we publish it again. But for now, I'll move on to the next feature, which is the dropdown. So dropdown by itself is not a unique feature, but there's something that I typically face when it comes to dropdowns, which is the values for the dropdown itself. So if it's a list of countries, list of states, whatever you have, I usually have to figure that out, maybe use ChatGPT and then populate my form builder with that kind of information. But here what they have done is, so if we look for a dropdown, so let's drag a dropdown onto the page here. And then on the right for the settings, you will see an option called predefined list. So here you can select, for example, country, state, city, country and state, last 100 years, days, months, time zone, which is a pretty cool one, or you can build a custom one. So for now, let's select a country state option. What it's going to give us is it's going to split it into two dropdowns, country and state. And it comes with a pre-populated list. So let's do a quick preview. There we go. So at first we only see the country option, but if I click on, let's say, Canada, it is also going to give me the states, which are provinces in Canada. But check this out. All the provinces are already pre-populated based on the country that I selected. So if I had selected United States, let's see, we should get all the states here. There we go. So we get the list of states pre-populated. So again, dropdown by itself is not unique, but the fact that you can have a predefined list is pretty cool, in my opinion. Saves a lot of time. Perfect. So let's check this one off. Okay, so file upload. Again, the file upload. So let's go here and look for the file upload and drop it onto the page. The file upload feature, what's cool about this is a couple of things. The first thing is you can decide how big of a file you want to allow. So if it's 2048, meaning 2 megabytes, I could increase that into, let's say 4196, I believe is or that's 4.2 megabytes. So you can do the math. I don't remember. I guess it's 4096. It's been a while. There we go. So you get the idea. But basically, you can decide how big of a file you can allow for the user to upload. And not only that, you can also select the types of extensions that you want to accept. So if you know that you are expecting an image to be uploaded, for example, a health insurance card or a dental insurance card, you can restrict it to maybe a JPEG, a PNG, or sometimes it can even be a PDF. So let's do that one. There we go. I'm not expecting anyone to upload a presentation and stuff like that, so I don't have to select those options. So here we can say upload an image of your health card. Very cool. Okay, so that's the file upload feature, and we are going to test some of them once I publish the form the next time, because I don't want to go through the email verification every time. So let's go back to the checklist and check this one off as well. So the next one is the calculation field. Again, pretty cool. So let me close some of these preview forms and go back to the builder. So for this one, first thing we need is a number field. So let's say we're asking the user to enter some kind of a number. It could be their weight. It could be maybe the number of hours they sit in front of a computer every day, or number of times they brush their teeth or something like that. So actually, let's go with that example. So say enter the number of times you brush your teeth every day. Perfect. And so the user can enter this information here. And then right below it, what we can do is we can do a calculated field. And then in here, what you can do is you can basically do some calculations. So let's say we want to show the user how many times they should be brushing or something like that. So we'll say, so it automatically gives me the option to select the number field that I added to my form already. And here, so in the calculation builder, I will say 2 minus whatever they enter. So it will calculate basically if they enter 1, we will say you need to brush your teeth 1 more time. And if they enter 2, we'll say you need to brush your teeth only 0 more times, or you don't need to brush your teeth again. So something like that. So this field, the calculated field itself, doesn't have to be displayed to the user. We can hide that one. And what we can do is we can add a text right below this field, and we'll say paragraph text. And here we can say you need to brush your teeth, and the value here is going to be the calculated field right above it more times, or something like that. And let's make sure there's no extra space here. Perfect. Okay, so let's quickly try to preview this. Not all features work in the preview mode, so let's see if this one works. Okay, so enter the number of times you brush your teeth every day. So if I say 1, now it says you need to brush your teeth 1 more time. It's just did a simple math. Of course, there's going to be better use cases for this, but I just wanted to highlight that this is another feature that you can use using this form builder. Very cool. So let's check this one off. Save and continue later, again, pretty handy, especially if the form gets really long. So you can allow the user to save their progress and then continue at a later time. So for this one, we might have to publish the form. So let's close this and add so this one is going to be in the form settings. So we don't need to add a field for that. So here you can check out these bunch of different settings that you can set on your form. But the one that I wanted to show you was the enable, save, and continue. So once you enable this, and we can say, and you can rename this button, I'll say continue later. Very good. And then let's publish it. And what I noticed is sometimes it does take a couple of seconds to deploy. So it's currently in deploying status. So if I preview it, I don't think my feature will be enabled just yet, but let's try it anyway. Continue, wait for the email to come in. There we go. And back in here. Okay, so I did see that. So if we go all the way to the bottom, there is a button now that says continue later. So if I click on that, it's going to give me this pop-up that says enter your email address, and we are going to send you a link to this form, and we will save the progress that you've already made. So whenever you're ready to restart, all you have to do is go to that email and click on that link. So if I click on send to email, and let's check the email. So save and continue URL was just delivered to me. And all I have to do is click on resume form, and it's going to take me back to where I started. I did not enter any information yet, so it's not going to show me anything. But if I did, that would have already been pre-populated for me. So very cool feature again. So let's close this and go back to the build mode and go back here. So this one is done. Okay, so let's keep going here and talk about the next one, which is localization. And again, pretty cool feature when it comes to legal things, because for example, in Canada, you have to show all the forms and all the signage and all the notifications in both English and French. You can use this feature to, using GPT, translate all the form fields into the French language as well, or vice versa. So let me show you how that works. So if for this first step you need to do is actually go out of the form and go into the settings. And in here on the internationalization option, you can click on edit and you can add as many languages as you want. So I already added French. So let's click on update. And now when we go back to the form, and let's open the dental clinic intake form. So in the build tab, we have an option to enable different languages on our form. And it shows me by default all the languages that are enabled at my workspace level settings. And because I enabled French already, I see that option here. So let's go ahead and enable that. And as soon as I enable that, I see this edit button. So once we click on that, we see all the labels that we have added to this particular form, and it says they're not translated. And what you can do here is you can either provide the translations yourself, or you can click on this auto translate button, which again is going to use GPT behind the scenes to translate all the entities or all the strings and then inject them here so that when your user is using the form, they can select the language they want to see their form in. I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to wait for it to continue because it can take some time. But if we publish it again, and I just want to show you how it appears on the other side. So if we go to the form, now what will happen is we see this drop down here at the top, and we see both English and French options, and some of them are already translated, so you will see that. But any custom strings that you have added need to be translated using the GPT. So these are the built-in strings, so they're already translated, but these ones are the ones that you added, so they need to be translated using GPT or manually. So that's how you can do translation. And notice, like, you don't have to do anything else. All you have to do is provide the translated strings within the settings, and then everything else is taken care of by Makeforms. And then the next one is custom links per source. Okay, so what is this about? So notice whenever we publish the form, we get a default link, but then we also get this option here to create a new source. So let's click on this, create a new form link. So what is this about? Well, what you can do is you can allow the user to enter your form from different locations. For example, I can put a link below my YouTube videos, or I can put a link below my LinkedIn videos, or in case of the dental clinic, they can maybe put a QR code in their reception area, or maybe put a link on their website. And if they want to track where the users are coming from, they can create a different source for the form. So for this one, let me just say reception or something like that, and then create. So now it's going to give me a unique link for the reception area that I can post here as a QR code. And then what I can also do is if I go into the settings for the source, there's a bunch of different settings that I can enable. I can restrict responses, or I can password protect this form, or maybe I can do a cutoff date that, like, you cannot fill this form. Maybe let's say the form was something specific to some kind of a contest and you want to have a cutoff date on it, but the link was going to be posted forever. So you can, disable the form automatically on a given date. So these are the source level settings that you can enable and make something unique about that particular link. So that was another thing I wanted to highlight. And let's go back to the checklist. So that's the custom links. And then we have settings, which I already talked about. So we had the custom link, which is the new source, which we created for the reception. And then we had the settings related to that particular source. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is deploying a form to a region. So what is this all about? Okay, so let's go back here. Let's close this. Actually, I want to keep that one. Let's close this one. So for this, if we go back all the way to the home page, and if I click on the workspace, so notice what happens when I click on switch workspace. It is going to give me an option to create a new workspace. So if I click on create new workspace, actually before I do that, notice this one says US data center. So data for all the forms under this workspace is going to live within a United States data center. But for example, I live in Canada and the dental clinic here wants to store the data related to the intake form within Canada because of the legal requirements. They can create a new workspace and select the region where they would like this data to be stored. So in this case, it's going to be the Canadian region. And if we select that, you also notice all the compliance requirements that are met for that particular region. And I know PIPEDA is a big one here in Canada. So click on create. Actually, I need to give it a name. So I'll say Canadian workspace. Click on create. And that is going to create a new workspace for me. It says team creation limit exceeded. Maybe I already, or maybe on my account, I'm only allowed one workspace. But if you were on a paid account and you wanted to create a workspace dedicated to a particular region, that's how you would do it, which is again a pretty cool requirement, especially when it comes to HIPAA compliance or PIPEDA compliance and stuff like that. So that's the regions. So let's check that off. And what you would have to do is once your region is created, basically you will create the forms under that particular workspace so that MakeForms knows that this data needs to stay in this region. Okay, so the next one is workflow. So this is a pretty cool one. So let's go here. And on the left, you have an option to do workflows. So let's click on create new workflow and I'll click on start from scratch and I'll call it the intake processing workflow. So imagine someone has filled out the form and we want to process that form. So this workflow will get triggered. And here what it says is basically you start by selecting a form. So response, meaning when a form is submitted, this workflow will get triggered. And we want to select the dental clinic intake form. And what I want to do is I want to basically send the form to a reviewer and attach this here. And the email can be my email. If I added more email to my account, I could select one of those emails. And then what I want to do maybe is also do an approver. And again, I can set one of the emails. Actually, let's just remove the reviewer. We don't need it. Approver can get the job done. So let's click on this. So basically what will happen is as soon as the form is filled out, I will receive an email saying that, hey, this was just came in and you need to basically now approve or decline it. So we can do that. And then finally, after this, what you can do is maybe we want to send an email back to the patient who filled out the form. So we can say, and then here we can select when this email is sent. We can say if it is approved, we will send this email and the email address will be basically from the form itself. And if I edit the email, for this one, I can in the subject say approved and save. And if I wanted to basically send a different email for if they're not approved for whatever reason, like we cannot see the patient or the information is not complete, we can send it back to the same email, but this time the subject is going to be rejected or something like that. Very cool. Click on save. And then finally, I guess we need to select the outcome. So this will happen when the approver declines, and then we will just end the flow. Very good. So that is the whole process. So form intake comes in, an email is sent to the approver. The approver can either approve or decline it. And based on what action they take, we are going to send either an approval email or a rejection email. And then finally, we're going to end the flow. So there are many different things you can do here. You can add like a waiting. You can add a webhook call. You can do if else. So typical workflow builder, but I just wanted to highlight that it's a pretty cool feature again built into MakeForms. So let's just save this. And it's giving me an error because I need to connect my email address to be able to send this. Okay, so go back here and check this off as well. Okay, so last three are going to be design related. And for this, the first one is custom CSS. Second one is custom font, and third one is custom domain. So let's start with the CSS one and go back here in my dental clinic intake form. And if I go to the design tab, one of the things I see here on the right is custom CSS. So for this, what we need to do is we need to open the form first and open this in a new tab. And here I go back to the design tab. So let's say I want to restyle this heading. So for this, if CSS, you need to know the class name that you're basically styling. So I'm going to inspect the class name for this particular element and look for, maybe let's go with this one, seems pretty specific. And if I go back here in the design tab in the custom CSS, I enter this class name and I can basically, let's say change the color to something like red. And misspelled it. There we go. So now using custom CSS, I've basically targeted this element to turn it into red. I see that this one is turned as well because my CSS is not specific enough. So let's try to make it strong. There we go. Okay, so now we have only this one. So if CSS, you know how this works. You basically need to identify the right class name. And once that's identified, you can basically do any kind of styling to it as well. So that's the other cool feature that Make Forms offer. So let's check that off. Okay, custom font. So for this one, let me go quickly back to the home page again. Duplicate this tab and use this one to go back onto the home page. So here on the left, you will notice that we have a fonts option and you can add any font that you want. So if you have a very specific font for based on your brand guidelines, your company, you can upload it here. And then once you upload it, it is going to become available throughout your workspace. I've already uploaded one called Rosa Revo. So if I go back to the design tab and click on fonts, I can select for different things. I can select it at the theme level, at the question level, at the answer level. So we're selected at the theme level. It is going to apply it wherever it makes sense. And if everything is not covered, then I can go and apply it to more specific things as well. So now I see it is applied to the labels and the questions and stuff like that. So that's custom forms. And then finally, we have custom domains. So again, this one happens on the homepage as well. So if you go to domains, here what you can do is you can add a domain and you can select basically a subdomain of your own homepage. So I'll say intake.dentalclinic.com, set up domain. And once this kicks off, it is going to give me some settings, which then I can take and go back to my DNS settings of my domain provider and then attach this form to the domain. So then what will happen is instead of sending people to this particular form link, you can just send them to that specific link which you have just created called intake.dentalclinic.com and so on and so forth. So that's the domains. If I go back to view all domains, I have a couple of them here. Both of them obviously are fake, so they're not going to work, but you get the idea on how you can apply a custom domain to your form. Very cool. So check that off as well. So I think we're pretty much done here with all the features. So that is it. Those are the 15 features I wanted to highlight about this form builder that I personally thought make this pretty unique and actually can give Typeform a run for its money because it is pretty robust and it's pretty new. So they're just starting and it will continue to get better. So I hope you found this useful and you take it for a spin. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.